Hi everyone, this is Kathy from K.dill Handmade, and I wanted to welcome you to the video tutorial for the Roadie, which is a mini version of the Road Tripster Tote. And that's one of my most famous, most popular patterns, and I think this one is probably going to surpass that because guys, it's just so cute. So let me just show you real quick the bag so you can see. This one has, you can have it with two straps on the top, or you can have it with an adjustable strap that attaches to the side. Again, it's got all of your favorite features from the Road Tripster Tote, including the full panel back pocket here. In this pattern, I have included the recessed zipper option. And then inside you have, over here on this side, you have a slip pocket, and then I made a couple little pen slots here. You could also divide this in half. Really, you could make however many compartments you want here. You could have one big one, or divide it up. There is a water bottle, or this also fits a 12-ounce soda can, so that fits really good in there as well. And then on this side you have, I stuck a little label on there, and then this side has the zipper pocket, and again you've got the D-ring tabs just like on the Road Tripster. And then you have the recessed zipper option like I mentioned, which is optional. You don't have to include that if you don't want to, but it is included in the bag. So this is the one that I made in the pattern, and then let me just show you the one that has the crossbody strap option. So that one is like this, and as you can see, instead of doing the different color accent piece here, I just used the cork for the outer. Again, same on the top and bottom, and then your straps are connected to the side, so that gives you the crossbody strap option. Okay, so both of those instructions are included in the pattern. The one that we are going to be making today in this video tutorial is the double strap, so not the crossbody adjustable, but just the two side straps. So let me just bring over the pieces and I can show you those and we will get started. All right, so the pieces that I'm using today, you can see we have 4 zippers here, and I have the zipper pulls already attached to those zippers, and those measurements are provided in the patterns for all of those. Then you will have your strap webbing, and I am just using seatbelt webbing here for my straps. 2 of those. You could also make your own straps if that's your thing. For me personally, straps are my least favorite, so I love seatbelt webbing. So that's what I'm going to be using here for this. You have a recessed zipper end tab, and that will go on the end of your zipper if you're adding the recessed zipper. You could also add the hardware that goes on the end, that the end of your zipper would go into, and it secures with a screw. So then if you were using that, you would not need this piece, but we are going to be doing this one today. Also optional is the swivel or D-ring key minder. That will be hanging from the side. You can put one on both sides. I'm just going to put one on one side today, but that is that piece if you want to include that. And that's just something you can hang on the inside of your bag if you want to connect maybe your keys to it, or if you have a small little wallet or coin pouch that just hangs on the side, and you can easily connect your item to that and secure it inside the bag. If you're adding a logo tag, you'll need a logo tag. I will be adding that one. You have your recessed zipper facing pieces. There are 4 of those. I've done 2 in the outer material and 2 in the lining material. You're going to have a bottom stabilizer. This is Decoville Heavy, so this is going to go along the base of the bag. Then I have your interior zip pocket. There's 2 of those, and I use the lining material for that. Your interior slip pocket, which is the one that I showed you that has, I made a couple pencil or pen slots in it, and then had the slip pocket on the other half. So there's 2 of those. Your interior main. That's the inside of your bag. You're going to need 2 of those. Your interior facing, so that's going to go inside of the bag above where the recessed zipper is. Full pocket lining, that is going to go, again, if you're adding the full zipper pocket on the outside of the bag, this is going to be the lining for that. This is something, if you don't want to add that full zipper pocket on the outside, you don't have to, you can skip that. But if you are, you're going to need 2 of these. We have zip tabs. There's 4 of those. The zip pocket back lining, 1 of those. Slip pocket front accent, and I'm going to be doing this. I'm not going to be using a different color for that accent piece. As you saw in the orange bag in the front, it was that piece over here to the side. I'm going to be using the same as the rest of my bag for that. Then I have the slip pocket zipper bottom and the zipper top. There's an outer and a lining of both of those. And then that's on the front of the bag over here where that little zipper pocket was. You have the slip pocket back. So that is the full back piece. So you have over on this side, that's where you're going to have your zipper pocket. And on this side is the accent piece. And then this piece is going to be on the back side of that, creating the slip pocket on the front there. You have your bottom accent panels. I have 2 of those, and I'm using a navy cork for that. And then your outer main. So I have 2 of those. 1 in the lining material and 1 in the outer. And for this, I will say I'm using waterproof cotton, except for this, which is cork. I'm using waterproof cotton for everything, and so it has a bit of structure already. I am not interfacing any of the waterproof cotton pieces. Now you are more than welcome to interface them if you want them to be a little bit more firm, or if you, just like yours, you know, a little stiffer. Some people prefer to add fleece or foam. That will make definitely a much firmer bag. This one is going to be a little more on the softer side, which I think will be great for an everyday bag for me. Okay, so now that we've gone over all of the pieces, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the first thing we're going to be working on is our recessed zipper. So you're going to need your O pieces. There are 4 of those. And again, I'm using 2 exterior pieces and 2 interior pieces. You could use all 4 exterior. You can use an accent fabric. Really, you could use, you know, whatever you want. This is just what I'm doing for this particular version. What I've done is I have gone ahead and marked a line down the side according to what is provided in the pattern instructions. And then I'm going to place a piece of double-sided tape right at each of those lines. So this is making the front, or I should say the inside, recessed zipper. If you do not want to make a recessed zipper, you can skip this part. You could also skip the recessed zipper and add a snap closure if you would prefer to do that. That is not provided for in the pattern instructions, but I have other patterns, and I'm sure you could find the original Road Tripster tote also has instructions for how to add a magnetic snap. So you could always look there if you needed reference on how you would do that. So now what I'm doing here is I'm just removing this paper backing, and I am folding the edge up to that drawn line. And I'm going to do that on all 4 pieces. Oops. That one, I just took the tape all the way off. Okay, paper backing only. And then folding the edge up to that drawn line. Okay, so now that you have your 4 pieces with one side folded under, the other side is not folded under, you're going to take your zipper for the recessed zipper option. And on the piece, well, I guess it doesn't really matter because we're going to end up taking the zipper pull off. But what you want to do on one of the ends is you're going to split it back a little bit, and then we're going to fold the end under, just so the top of that zipper tape is even with the side of your zipper here. So what I do is I just fold it under like that. If you can see, it's kind of, there's 3 layers there. I'll just tuck it under and fold it. And then what I like to do, you can always add a couple little stitches if you want to hold that in place. Let's see. Let me do that again. Okay, so you could add a couple stitches in right there. You could also use a lighter to kind of melt the sides of your zipper here, and then that would help hold it in place. I'm using, what I have here is a Tim Holtz mini stapler, and I just added a little staple right at the end there to hold it right in place. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing to the other side, lining up that edge, and then adding the staple. Okay, so you can see once it's, so what it kind of looks like there. Okay, so what we want to do now is we're going to take our zipper pull all the way off. And then we're going to set one of our zipper teeth, 1/2 of our zippers to the side. So let's go ahead and put one each of our outer and lining facing with that zipper. We're just going to work on one side at a time. So we have one side exterior and lining, one side folded under, and one side of our zipper teeth. Now what you want to do is you want to take your zipper teeth, your 1/2 of your zipper teeth, you're going to flip it over so it is teeth side down, and you're going to line it up with this top edge. There is a measurement provided in the pattern instructions for where I normally place that, how far in, and you're going to clip it in place. Here, let me flip it over. It'll be a little easier for me to clip it this way. Okay, so you're going to clip it in place, and then keeping in mind you want the long tail of your zipper tape, you want it to be towards the folded end of your facing piece. So the folded end of your zipper is at the raw end of the zipper, the recessed zipper facing, and then your tail is hanging off of this folded end here. Okay, so let's go ahead, and what we want to do, I'm just going to do these both at the same time, I think, just to show you, because we want them to be mirror images. So the folded edges are at this end, and then with our zipper teeth, we're going to do the same thing on this one, measuring it in the same distance. And then we're going to clip that in place. Okay, again, I'm just going to flip it this way so I can clip it a little easier. It's easier for me to clip it from the top. Okay, once you have that clipped, this is what it's going to look like. Again, the folded edges are here, the raw edges are here, the folded, stapled, stitched end of your zipper is here, and then with the tails coming off this end at the folded end of the facing. So you should have mirror images of each other. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take the lining piece and you're going to match it up. So you want your folded end and folded end at the same side. And then you're just going to clip it all the way across. So just adding this piece on And I'm going to do this to this piece of the zipper tape and then to this one as well. Okay, once you have those clipped in place, what you're going to do is you're going to take them, I'm going to have them both going this way so we know the zipper is at the top. We are going to take them to the machine and we are going to stitch according to the seam allowance in the instructions. We're going to stitch up this raw edge and then across to the end. Do not stitch down this side. So we're only stitching across the zipper teeth and then across the one end that is not folded. Same here, one end that's not folded across the zipper tape, starting and stopping there. We're going to do that to both of those pieces. I'm going to take these over to the sewing machine, then I'll be back. And then once we get that done, we will be ready to turn it through to the other side. Okay, once you get those stitched, what we're going to do, again, you only stitched on this raw edge and then across the top, leaving this folded edge open. So what we want to do now is on this corner where you stitched, we're just going to trim the corner just a little bit to kind of help it lay nicer once you turn it through so that you don't have that bulk in the seam allowance there. Okay, so now once you get that, what we're going to do is we're just going to push it through. So you want your zipper facing pieces to now be wrong sides together. They are right sides out, wrong sides together. And I'm just going to add a couple clips here to help kind of hold everything in place. If you have a turning tool that you like to use, you can go ahead and use that to poke out that corner where that the folded end of your zipper is. I'm going to grab the tool that I like to use most often is just this. I have this bamboo knitting needle, and I'll just use that to kind of poke out my corners. And then just be real careful so you don't poke through. You know, you just want to poke it out, but you don't want your you don't want your poker to come all the way through your stitches. Okay, so once you get that turned out, again, I'm just adding a couple clips to hold it in place. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Okay, so once you have both of those pushed through, what we're going to do now is take them to the sewing machine. We are going to top stitch. So along this folded edge that you had earlier, we're going to top stitch along here, all the way along the zipper teeth, and then down this edge. Optionally, you can also just baste stitch this closed, and that will just help it. You don't have to, but it'll help it to make it a little easier when you're attaching it to the bag lining in a later step. So you're going to take it to both. We're top stitching down the short sides, along the zipper teeth, and then you can always baste to stitch this open edge closed. Okay, once you get those top stitched, trim off your loose threads, and then we are going to set these to the side for now. You can use or place your zipper pull with your recessed zipper panels. We will be installing these all at a later step. So I'm just going to set these to the side over here for now. And then the next thing we need to work on is our swivel or D-ring key minder, and that is pattern piece R. This is optional, but I do like adding that. So what I will do is I will just draw a line down the center and then adding a piece of double-sided tape along each side of that center line. Okay, we're going to remove the paper backing and then fold the edge up to that center line. Same thing on the other side. Okay, so it's folded up to that center line, and then we're going to take it and fold it in half. So it's enclosing that raw edge in the center of this strip here. I'm going to add a couple clips just to help hold it in place. Then I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and top stitch all the way around all 4 sides of our keyring tab here. Okay, so once you get that stitched, what we are going to do now is take your hardware. So you can use either a lobster clasp or a D-ring, and we're going to slide it onto one edge of your tab. Now here, optionally, you can stitch back and forth, just stitch a line there to secure this together, or you could add a rivet to secure this strap. What I'm going to do is add a rivet. So I have my hole punching press here. So I'm just going to center that Okay, so I centered that in the strip close to the edge there, and then taking my rivet, I'm going to push it through the hole, attach the other side, it kind of snaps in place, and then I have a cam press. I have two hand presses. I went ahead and made the investment just because I was manually doing them, and it was really hard squeezing all of that to make sure that it was tight enough. And then I even tried, using the hammer to set them, and I hit my fingers a few times. So I was like, you know what, guys, I am getting a press. So once you get that, I'm just taking it over here, press it down just like that, boom, done. And my rivet is set. Okay, so now once you have that done, you can set that to the side, and we will again be installing this when we work on the lining. Okay, one of the things I wanted to show you, I am not making it for this bag, but there is this optional bottle sleeve attachment. Now the measurements provided in the pattern create this bottle sleeve here, which fits a 12-ounce soda can perfectly. If you have a larger bottle or larger can that you normally like to carry around with you, you can always adjust the width accordingly. If you can compare it to what the can size is, that will help you to know how much longer you need to make this piece in order to make it so that it holds your bottle just correctly. If you have any questions on how you can adjust this, if you're having troubles figuring that out, feel free to go ahead and post on my makers group, and I or one of the other makers in the group will chime in and help you out and answer any questions that you might have. Another side note that I will say, if you're adding the water bottle, on this version I put it over here tucked out of the way, but it kind of gets in the way of the zipper here. So I would recommend when you are installing the recessed zipper, when you get to the lining piece, if you're adding the water bottle, make the water bottle at the side, for instance over here, where it's wide and open and nice, easy to get in and out of, and then you're not running into this zipper end issue. Okay, so we are ready to move on to the front exterior panel. So the first thing we need to do is get our zipper prepped. So we are going to need one of the zippers, and the length for that is provided in the pattern instructions. You're going to need your 4 zip tabs. And what we're going to do with your zipper teeth installed is we're going to take a zip tab and a zip tab to each end. So the zip tabs are right sides together, and you're sandwiching the zipper between the 2 zip tabs. And then I'll just add a couple clips here to help hold it in place. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. So zip tab, zipper tape, zip tab, right side down on top of the zipper tape. Okay, and then you're going to take it over to the sewing machine. You're going to stitch along both sides here. Then you're going to pull both of your zip tabs away from the teeth, away from the zipper tape, and then you're going to top stitch down that folded end. So again, pulling this, after you get this stitched, you're going to pull this one over this way and this one over this way, hold them here, and then top stitch down that folded edge. Okay, once you have those zip ends stitched on, what we're going to do is we are going to make the front zipper pocket. So with your pattern pieces E and F, you're going to need both of those. That is your slip pocket zipper top and bottom. Okay, so you have a lining and exterior for both. We're going to start with the bottom pieces. So we're setting the top pieces to the side. With your lining or your outer piece right side up, you're going to take your zipper and flip it over right side down. So here is one place where I want you to think about, or where you have to decide, do you want your zipper to open and close towards the center of the bag, or do you want it to open and close towards the outer of the bag? Personally, I like mine towards the center, so I'm going to have it opening and closing at this end. And how I can tell that is the flat end is what I call the closed end, and then it will open and close this way on the rounded end of the zipper pull. So that's how I know which way it's going to go. Okay, now I'm going to take this and center it on the zipper panel, or on the exterior pocket piece that's on the bottom there, and clip them in place across. Now once you get this all the way clipped across, it's up to you if you would like to baste stitch this on. You are more than welcome to baste stitch just along this edge to help that zipper to hold in place. I feel pretty confident. I normally don't baste stitch mine in place, so I'm just going to take my bottom lining piece and lay it right sides down on top of that, lining up the panels and the top edge of the zipper teeth. And I'm going to clip it in place. So again, we're making a zipper sandwich. So you have your lining, your zipper tape right side down, and then your lining is on top of that. Your outer and your lining are right sides together. Now we're going to take it over to the sewing machine. We're going to stitch across this edge here, attaching all of these pieces together. Then we're going to flip it all back and away from the zipper, and then top stitching along this folded edge. Okay, so again, stitch along here, take both panels, press them away from the zipper teeth so they will be wrong sides together, and then you're going to top stitch down this folded edge. Okay, once you have that stitched, everything's in place. Trim off any hanging strings that we have. And then we're going to repeat the same process for the top pieces. So with your top right side up, you're going to flip your panel over and align it along this top edge. So you want the edge of your lining panels here to match. You are going to have a bit of overhang that will be trimmed off in a later step. And then we're going to clip it across. Okay, so that is across like that, lining or outer and outer, and then flipping it over the lining piece, again, right side down, just like you did with the bottom pieces. We're going to clip that in place across the top. Okay, now we're going to take it to the sewing machine and do the exact same thing. We're going to stitch along here, pressing both of these panels, this time up and away from the zipper, and then stitching along the folded edge above the zipper. Okay, that is top stitched. Now you can trim off if you have any extra from your zipper tabs that are hanging. You can trim those off so they're even with the size of the panel. Okay, now the next thing we need to do is put the zipper pocket back lining on. So that is pattern piece G. And what that is basically, it's just the back of the zipper pocket. So your panels should match up exactly here. And just so you can get an idea, when you open your zipper pocket, that's going to be the piece you see underneath there. So what you want to do is just match it up all the way around. Add a couple clips to hold it in place. If you see me clipping or flipping clips, if you see me flipping clips, it is because I usually don't pay too much attention to how my clips go on, but I had one person that was in my test team. She was like, it drives me crazy. She likes all of her clips to be going in the same direction. I was like, oh, I never even thought about that. So now I always try to make sure that, you know, all my clips are going in the same direction, especially in videos, because I know it drives some people crazy. And then it was funny because after she mentioned that, then other people also mentioned it. And I was like, oh, okay, something I never even thought of. So if you see me flipping clips around, that's why I'm doing that. Now you might have noticed that I have a little bit extra down here, and that's totally fine. That will be trimmed off at a later step. So now what we want to do is we just want to baste this in place all the way around all four edges, holding the pieces together. Okay, once that is basted, you can always check your pocket, see how it's going to look. Everything looks great. Now what we need to do is we're going to add actually I'm going to move my zipper pull to the middle so it stays out of the way. But if you're adding an accent piece, this is pattern piece D, slip pocket front accent. If you're adding an accent piece, that's going to go here on this side. If you are not, as you can see that I am just using the same fabric, so it doesn't really matter. Let me just make sure my roses are going the right direction. What we are going to do is just clip it in place along this short edge here, and then we're going to stitch it according to the seam allowance. We're going to flip it back, finger press it. You can also take it to the iron, but do not top stitch it. That will be in a later step when we attach it to the outer body, and then that's what's going to create our slip pocket. So all you want to do is just top stitch down here and finger press this back just to keep it away from that zipper and in place to where it's supposed to be. Okay, so that is stitched on. I'm just going to pull this back, give it a nice good finger press. Again, we are not top stitching it just yet. What we need to do next is we're going to take our slip pocket back, which is pattern piece C, and we're going to lay that down right sides together on top of the panel that we were just working on. So I want to make sure my zipper pull is out of the way, and then making sure that this stays pulled over. You can always pull it when you're clipping it to make sure that it's pulled over as far as it needs to be. It's funny now that I told you about that clip situation. Now when I see them, I'm like, oh, it's upside down or it's backwards. I need to fix that. Okay, so once it's clipped in place, we're going to stitch all the way along here according to the seam allowance. Then we're going to press both panels back and away, and then from this folded edge from this seam, and then we're going to top stitch along the top of this, and this is going to become our front outside slip and zip pocket. Okay, so that is stitched together. Now what we want to do is we want to press this away, and I'll just give it a little finger press, and then we're going to fold it under. So we want this seam rolled right to the end as much as we can. So our bottom panels should line up, the bottom edges of our panels here, once we turn them through. And then I'm just going to clip that in place all the way along. Okay, and then just flipping it over. If I need to make any adjustments, I can make some adjustments, but that all looks pretty good. Okay, so now I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and I'm going to top stitch all the way along this edge here. Okay, now that I have that top stitched, so again, I just pressed both of these panels so that they are wrong sides together, top stitched along this top edge. Now what we want to do is attach it to one of our outer panels. So I am doing, for my bag, I have a different color for my front main outer panel, and that's pattern piece A. And that's just because I want this little bit of contrast here at the top. You can do it in the same print as here. If you had an accent, you could do it in an accent color. It's really up to you, you know, whatever preference, whatever you feel like you want to do for your bag, do it. So now what I'm doing is I am just aligning it along the sides and the bottom, and I'm just measuring here at the ends to make sure that my panel is straight, that it's not off a little bit, and mine is off a little bit. So I'm going to move that down. There we go. Okay, once you get that aligned and measured, you know, laying just right, you're going to go ahead and clip the sides in place. And then what you want to do is from the earlier step, you know, when we pressed this side accent panel off to the side, we did not top stitch that. And that's because right now is where we are going to top stitch it. So starting here and then going down, you can top stitch right along this edge, 1/8 of an inch away from this folded edge here. Optionally, you could also do a stitch in the ditch and just ditch, or a stitch right in that little seam right there, and that will kind of hide it. But if you could also do both. But what we're going to do now is just top stitch down here, and then that's what's going to create our two additional, you know, it's going to separate our one pocket into the two pockets. Optionally, you can also base stitch down the side and then all the way across the bottom. Okay, once you get that top stitched, I just did one stitch row right here along this folded edge, and then I added a rivet right here. That's just to help give it a little bit extra strength right here where these pockets meet, just because of things coming in and out. It is totally optional, but it does add a little bit of a nice design feature if you feel like you want to do that. If not, and you're happy with just the stitching, you can absolutely leave the rivet off. Okay, now the last thing that we need to do to put together, well, second to last thing, is we're going to take one of our accent panels. So this is pattern piece B, bottom accent panel, and we're going to line it up along the bottom edge here. And then, let's see, I'll grab some more clips here. And I'm just going to clip right along this bottom edge. Oof, that is a tight clip. I got some new clips because some of my other clips were starting to break every time I opened them. So I've got some new clips mixed in with old clips, and that one is, gotta use your muscles for that one. Okay, so you're just gonna clip it right along the bottom. And then you're going to take it over to the sewing machine, sew along this bottom edge according to the seam allowance in the pattern instruction. You're going to flip this panel down, so your seam allowance is going to go down towards this accent piece. You're going to flip it down, and then you're going to top stitch along this folded edge right on the accent piece. Okay, so I have that top stitched. I have added my logo label. If you have a logo tag that you would like to add, you can really put it anywhere, but I find, for me personally, I like it on the front of the bag here, centered down about an inch from the top. And that's just the shape of my logo. If yours is a different shape or size, you'll want to adjust it accordingly wherever you put it. So now the last couple things that we have to do for this front panel before it's done is we have to cut out our bottom box corners, and then we have to attach our strap webbing. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and I've already marked the corners on each. I don't know if you can see, I just used a silver pen so that I could see that, and we're just going to cut it out with scissors. And the measurements for the size of the box here is included in the pattern instructions. Okay. Now what we want to do is take the strap webbing, and we are going to attach it to the top of the bag. Now I like to leave it overhanging about 3/4 of an inch, and I have also already marked my placements for the strap so I know how far in they need to go. Those measurements are provided in the pattern instructions. When you're attaching your webbing, you want to make sure that it's not twisted, and then you're going to line up your other side. And the reason why I like to leave this much overhang is because it will, what I like to do is once I turn it through, I will add a couple rivets here to the front, so that's also going to help give those straps strength on the front of the bag. And then just having it not on the edge, what I've done is I've singed the ends of these straps with a lighter because they are not cotton, so they kind of melted. But if there was any sort of fraying, it would not impact the bag at all. The straps wouldn't pull out. So that's just 2 reasons why I like to leave that little bit of overhang. And then that we'll add rivets when we turn it through. Okay, so now once you get those in the place where they're supposed to be, you can go ahead and baste those on. If you haven't already, you can add a couple baste stitches here to the side. You could also just leave it clipped. Really, it's up to you. Like I said, we've got the bottom corners cut out, and then our front outer panel is done. Okay, everything is basted on. The strap handle looks good. We have our corners cut out. I base stitched down along the side, have my logo on. So we are done with this front panel. We can set that to the side. Moving on to the back panel, we're going to make, if you're making your full lining pocket, you're going to need your other outer main piece A. And then you're going to need your 2 full pocket lining panels, that's pattern piece I. And then your 1 zipper, that is the length specified in the pattern instructions. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to set one of these linings to the side. We're going to take one of the lining panels, flip it over so that is right sides together with the outer main. And as you'll notice, I already drew a zipper box on here. There are measurements in the pattern for how far in you go and how far down and up you go. What we need to do now is, I could put a couple pins in here, but I think I'm just going to add some clips to help these panels to hold in place. And what we're going to do is we're just going to stitch around the outside of this box. So just stitching, I would reduce my stitch length. Use whatever you prefer for a narrow stitch length. For me, for zipper boxes, that's generally around 2.4, somewhere around there. And I will start at this corner, just stitch this box all the way around, stopping again right here, trying to, don't go over your stitch. Try to meet up exactly where that first stitch started so that you will have a nice crisp corner when we turn it through. Okay, so I'm going to take this over to the machine, stitch around the outside box only, ignore the center lines for now, and then I'll be back to show you how we cut out this hole and turn it through for our zipper. Okay, now that that box is stitched all the way around the outside only, what we need to do is we need to cut that center line. So it is up to you which method you prefer to cut your line. You could optionally fold this right in half, cut a little snip, and then cut out to that line and to that line, to those corner marks. I prefer using a rotary cutter just to make my center line. So I'll line up a ruler, and then I'll just cut beginning to end, and then this is where I'll come in with my scissors, and then I will cut up to that corner as close as I can get to the corner without cutting into those stitches. Okay, and then I'll do that on all 4 corners. Okay, so once you have it all cut, you should have something that looks like this with these little notches here at the ends. What we want to do now is we want to take our lining panel and we're going to push it through that hole. Okay, I will flip it over so the outer panel is right side down. Your lining is now right side up, and your 2 panels are wrong sides together. So I know that's a lot of directional, fabric directional information there, but you want your 2 panels to be right or wrong sides together, right sides out. And then what I'll do is I'll just kind of work this with my fingers to try to get that seam allowance. Sometimes you got to roll it. I'm using waterproof cotton here for both pieces, so that makes it, I feel like that makes it a little tricky because it's, or not tricky, but just a little tougher because the fabric is a little bit, you know, a little bit tougher than just regular cotton. Okay, so basically this is what you want it to look like. You want this hole like this. And then what I will do is I will take it to the ironing board. I will press this down so it stays nice and flat. Right now it's kind of poofy. I want it to be pressed down nice and flat. You shouldn't have too much puckering in your corners here. If you do, and it's driving you crazy, you can turn it back through and try to snip a little bit closer to those corners, because probably what had happened is you have a little bit of space there still before your thread line. So that is what's creating those puckers once you turn it through. Mine, I don't know if you can tell, but like I said, it's a little poofy, but I think once I get it ironed down, these puckers will go away and everything will be good. Okay, so I'm going to take that over to the ironing board. I'm going to give it an iron and then grab your zipper because we are going to install the zipper next. Okay, everything is all nice and pressed, laying pretty nice and flat. What we need to do now is we need to grab our zipper and we are going to install this into this opening. So what I like to do is use some double-sided tape, and I'm going to lay just a little strip. This is 1/8 inch double-sided tape. I'm going to lay a little strip along each length of the zipper. And then removing the paper backing, I'm going to try to line that up in that opening. So keeping the zipper pull in the center if possible. Off that sticky tape. Okay. And then what I'll do is I'll just kind of fold this panel back so I can see where the opening is so that I don't have, you know, I'm not too close to one edge. I have a good amount of overhang on each side. And then I will just bring it over on top of the zipper. Try to center it over that zipper as much as possible and press it down in place. You can do any adjustments you need to because that tape is repositionable. Then once you get it how you like it, what we're going to do is we are going to go over to the sewing machine and stitch a box all the way around at 1/8 of an inch. I usually start and stop down here at the bottom, and I'll just stitch that box all the way around at 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so the zipper is installed. What I did is I went ahead and I just trimmed a little bit off the top and the bottom here just to keep it out of any kind of seam allowance here along the top or the bottom edge. Now the last thing we need to do for the pocket is we need to grab our other pocket piece, lay that down right side up, lay this panel down on top of it, also right side up, so then your 2 linings are now together. We can clip it in place and you can baste stitch all the way around just to hold it in place here. Just lining up your edges. This side over here with the zipper might be a little wonky, but once you get it stitched down in place, it'll be just fine. Okay, so you're going to take that, you're going to baste stitch it all the way around. Once you get that done, we're going to grab our other, oof, that's that tight. I don't know what it is about that clip. That clip is really You gotta use your muscles for that. Sheesh. Okay, so once we get all that base stitched, we are going to grab our other bottom accent panel. We're gonna flip it over, aligning it along this bottom edge. We're gonna clip it in place, and then oops, there we go. It must have just been stuck or something. That's better. Okay. So we're going to sew along this bottom edge just like we did on the other side. Then we're going to press this back and then top stitch along this bottom accent panel. Okay, so that is based or top stitched across the edge of the accent panel. What I've done again is I have marked these corners in the bottom, so we need to cut out our bottom corners for the box corner piece. And then again, just like we did on the front panel, we're going to take our other strap webbing and then lining it up. Again, I've already marked the placement, and then I want that 3/4 of an inch overhang. So I'm going to clip these in place. And then one tip that I like to do before I stitch these in place is I will take this panel along with my completed other outer panel, and I will just kind of lay them on top of each other and see, you know, like top to top, and make sure that my strap ends are hitting in the same spot. And if they're not, which this one looks like it needs to be over just a little bit, now is the time to adjust it. I always say just double check it. That way you don't end up with your straps, you know, being offset and something crazy happens, and then you don't notice it till you're at the very end and you want to cry. So to avoid that, that's just one extra step that I do to double check to make sure everything's lining up right. Okay, so then I'm going to go ahead and base stitch this across, and then we will be ready to attach the bases together and put our stabilizer in the bottom. Okay, so with those straps basted in place, what we are ready to do now is we are going to take our two outer pieces and we are going to put our straps up and out of the way. We're going to flip our panels over so that they are wrong sides together, and then matching up that bottom seam, we're going to clip along this bottom edge here. And then we are going to sew across just this bottom edge here according to the seam allowance in the pattern instructions. Okay, now that that is sewn across, we need to open it up. We're going to lay it wrong side up, right side down. And what we want to do is we want to press this seam open. So you can use, since I'm using cork, I don't want to use an iron. You could use a pressing cloth if you wanted to use an iron here. But what I like to do is, oftentimes I will just use a piece of double-sided tape. And you don't have to do this, of course, but I will do that on both sides. And then when I press it open, that tape just helps to hold it just long enough. Let's see, my clips are wanting to join the show. So it'll hold it just long enough for me to get that next step done. Let's see. And sometimes it does not want to peel off very easily. There we go. There's one side. And then I will just press that over and hopefully it will hold it. And then same for the other side here. Again, just pressing that seam open. I apologize if it's kind of hard to see. I'm using navy blue cork on a blue table, and then the back of the navy blue cork is black. So I apologize if that's a little hard to see, but this is what we want to do. We want to press this seam open, and then we're going to grab our bottom stabilizer, which is pattern piece Q, and that is made out of K.dill Heavy. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to center it. So you want a little bit extra on either side here and here, and then you want the seam allowance here and here. So this can be a little tricky. What I will do sometimes is I can add a couple clips to hold it in place. You could also you could attach it with glue. You could put some glue on the underside. Just be careful if you're using vinyl. Sometimes the glue will bleed through and discolor the vinyl. I've had that happen a couple times. And that's so sad. It's so tragic. But you just want it to hold just long enough so you can flip it over, and then you're going to top stitch down either side of, I can feel my seam allowance wanting to lift up here. So you're just going to top stitch down either side of your seam. So one line on either side. Optionally, you can also add another row of stitching here along this outer edge if you wanted another row of decorative stitching. But I'm going to take mine over to the machine, get that down before everything tries to lift up too much, and I'll be back to show the next step. Okay, once you get that top stitched down, what we are going to do is we are going to take our bag and turn it right sides together, and we are going to stitch up the sides of the bag, and then we are going to box the corners. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up first on the sides. I'm going to line up that bottom accent piece because I want those seams to be perfectly lined up. And then I will line it up. I'll clip it in place going up the side of the bag to the top. Okay, and then same on the other side. I will first line up that accent piece. And this panel is a little bit wider on the other side right there, but that is totally fine because that will be within the seam allowance and no one will see it. No one will know. You can always trim it off if it bugs you too much. Okay, so I missed part of my K.dill Heavy here, so if that bugs you, you can always use a piece of double-sided tape. But I think once we get the corners boxed and turned through, it's caught on this side, but this side it went a little bit too wide. But once we get this done and get our corners boxed, it's going to be on the bottom, so no one's going to know. All right, so what we want to do now is we want to just stitch these sides together according to the seam allowance. Then we are going to come over to the corners, box those corners out, stitch across there. Same on this side, box this corner, stitch across there. So sealing those corners, and then we're going to turn our bag right side out and we'll get our first peek of what our finished bag is going to look like. Okay, so I turned that through. Can start to get an idea of what your bag is going to look like. Here's the back with the full lining pocket, and then the front, I have the two straps. And then I noticed once I turned it through, this feels like it's a pretty good structure because it's got actually 3 layers of the waterproof cotton. But this one up here only has one. Obviously down here it's fine, but up here there's only one. So I have the option of, I could always turn it back through and then just attach a piece of probably K.dill Light, something like that, just to give it a little more structure. I think instead of doing that though, I'm just going to add a piece of K.dill Light to the lining side that will be on this side, so that will help hold it once I put it all together and give it the structure that I'm looking for. Okay, so now that that's done, we can set this to the side and move on to our linings. Okay, moving on to the lining panels. What we need to do now is on both of our interior main K pieces, we are going to flip them over, and you are going to, on each piece, you're going to mark the boxed corners. And then we are going to cut those out. And then that will help us with our placement for when we are putting on the slip pocket There's a measurement provided so we know how far up from this boxed corner to attach the slip pocket. So we'll just cut both of these out first. Okay, once you get your 4 corners cut out, we can go ahead and set these to the side, and then we're going to work on our slip pocket first. All right, with our 2 slip pocket pieces, this is interior slip pocket M, we're going to take them and place them down right sides together. So we're just going to lay one right on top of the other. We can clip it in place, making sure it's lined up. Just add a couple clips around the side and the top. And then what we're going to do is we're going to stitch around. So I'll just make a little mark here so I know a start and stop point, and then we're going to stitch all the way around, starting and stopping at this mark. We're going to leave this part unsewn because that is going to be where we turn this pocket through. Okay, once that is sewn through, again leaving the center here open, this is going to be where we're turning it through. But first what we want to do is we just want to trim the corners a bit. And this is just going to help to keep some of the bulk down once we turn that corner through. It's going to help it so that we can get those corners poked out nice and straight and pointy. Okay, once you get that, we're just going to push it through. So turn it so that it is right sides out. Okay, once you have that turned through, you'll want your lining here to be, you want this to be folded in according to the seam allowance so that it is nice and even. You can go ahead and take it to the sewing or take it to the ironing board and give it a good press if you want to help hold it down. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to top stitch along this top edge. So not any of the bottom or the sides or anything, because we're going to be making pockets with this, but we just want to top stitch along that top edge first, and then we'll be ready to attach it to our lining panel. Okay, now that this is top stitched, what we need to do now is attach it to one of our lining panels. So grabbing one of the panels that you cut the holes out of, or cut the bottom corners out of, you're going to take your pocket and you want it centered, laying it down. There's a measurement for how far up you want it, and then of course you want it centered side to side. But what we are going to do is we are going to make the pockets. So here is where you get to decide, do you want one large pocket? Do you want it cut in half and have 2 medium-sized pockets? Maybe you want a larger pocket and a couple pen slots over here. I have provided in the pattern instructions measurements for if you want to add 2 pencil or pen slots here, and then you would have the larger slip pocket here. So that's what I'm going to do for this one. I'm going to just use my ruler and my erasable pen and mark a line and mark a line. And so that's where I know where I'm going to be stitching my lines at. And then you're going to stitch all the way around this outside, and that will attach the pocket to the lining panel. So I will, off camera, I will go ahead and measure to make sure I am up the right amount from the bottom, and I'm also centered left to right. You can add, if you have a pin, if you're not using vinyl, you can go ahead and pin that if you want to help hold it in place. And then what I'll do is I'll just start here, come across, go up, back down for the first pencil line, up and back down for the second pencil line, across to this end, and across to this top, just doing a couple little back stitches at the beginning and the end to hold it in place. Okay, so I have those stitched on. So what I have here is I have 2 pen slots, one right there and one right here, and then the larger slip pocket there. Now also what I did was on this one, because this is going to be the panel that sits next to the front here, is I went ahead and added a strip of Decoville Light, and I kept it out of the base because we know, when we did the exterior, we have already that Decoville Heavy on the base. So I don't need it here. I just wanted a little extra structure on the body. So I did that, cut it a little bit smaller than the size of the panel to keep it out of the seam allowance. And then I think that will be just enough for what I'm looking for. Okay, and then if you think, oh no, I still want it to be a little more firm, just go ahead and add another piece. And again, that's only if you want to, because sometimes, you want your bags to be a little more floppy, and that's okay. All right, so now thinking about how this is going to sit inside. So this panel is going to be on the front of my bag. I will carry my bag this way, so it'll be on my right side. So that panel is there. So what I want my bag to open and close from this end, because I just want the opening and closing to be in the front, towards the front of my body. If I wore my bag on my left side, I probably would want it switched to that way. But because that is going that way, I want it to open and close that way. That is going to be this panel. So opening and closing over here to the left. Now what you want to do is you want to grab your facing that has your zipper facing, that has the zipper tail off to the right, because it will close this way. So that's what we want. We want it to close to the left, and we want the tail off to the right. Now, like I said, if you want your bag to close the other way, or if you're going to flip your panels around, just something to keep in mind when you're putting this on, so that your lining is situated just how you like it inside of your bag. Okay, so now what we want to do is we just want to measure and make sure that it is even, and it is centered. One option you could do, you could always measure side to side, or you could fold this panel in half and then make a little mark at the halfway part, and then you could fold this outer panel in half and make a little mark, and then you could just line up those marks right there and clip it across, and it would be centered as well. Okay, so now that we have that on, you can go ahead and base stitch this across. Once you have it base stitched on, you're going to grab one of your interior facing panels, and that is panel J. So with one of your facing panels, then you're going to take that and lay it down right side down on top of that. And I think on this side, what I will also do is I will add some Decoville Light, just a little strip right here. I'll add a little bit of Decoville Light on this as well, just to keep it the same thickness as down here. So what I will do, I'm going to take this to the machine. I'm going to stitch this on. I'll probably then add the little piece of Decoville Light, keeping it out of the seam allowance here. Then I will flip this panel up and top stitch along this folded edge here. Okay, now you can see what I did was I stitched it, then I added the piece of Decoville Light. I pressed this panel up and away from this recessed zipper, and then top stitched it along this folded edge. Okay, so once you get that done, your slip pocket side panel is done, and we're ready to move on to the zipper pocket side. Okay, moving on to the zipper pocket side, you're going to need your other interior lining panel, your full panel, and then you're going to need your two interior zip pocket pieces, which are pattern piece N. And then we're going to set one to the side. So with one of them, we are going to lay it right side down. On top of that panel, there are measurements for how far down from the top of the panel, and then how far down to mark this box, as well as the measurements for this box. So we are going to do this in the exact same way as we created the zipper pocket for the outside of the bag when we did here, the full lining panel. So we're going to make this zipper box the same way here. We're going to stitch all the way around the outside of this box. Once we get that done, we're going to cut that center line and then cut out to each corner, getting as close as we can to the corners without cutting into our stitch line. Once we get that done, we're going to push everything through, press it down, and then I'm going to go ahead and do all of that off camera, and then I'll be back to show how we install the zipper and the other half of the pocket, which, like I said, if you created the outside full panel pocket, this will be very familiar to you. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. We're going to stitch around, cut the line, press it through, get everything laid nice and neat, and then we will be ready to go. Okay, I have my box stitched. The hole was made. I cut it, turned it through. I have a little bit of puckering on this side because my stitch went over a little bit, but I think once I get this zipper installed and stitched down, you won't notice that too much. So I'm not going to worry about that. I think it'll be just fine. Now what you want to do is you want to grab your zipper and think about which way do you want it to open. Do you want it to open and close to the left or open and close to the right? I like mine generally over to the left, so I'm going to have the open side, which is the curved side of the zipper pull, over here to the left. And then what I will do, just like with the exterior full pocket panel, is I will add a piece of double-sided tape along both sides, along the length of the zipper. I'll remove the paper backing and then center it again, center it over that window. So same process. I'll just fold this panel back, center it left and right as much as possible, and then just lay it on top of that zipper, trying to keep the zipper teeth right in the center of the hole. Okay, once you get it down how you like it and everything looks good, you can take it over to the sewing machine, and we're going to top stitch a box all the way around this zipper opening. So just top stitch all the way around, starting and stopping. And again, if you wanted to, you could leave some long tails here so that you could pull it through to the back side, and then you wouldn't see that start and stop point. So I think I'm going to do that, and then I'll tie mine off on the back, and then we'll be ready to finish putting our zipper pocket together. And then the next pieces we're going to need is our other half of the recessed zipper and the other top facing. And then optionally, if you're adding a D-ring tab, we'll add that in the next step as well. Okay, so I'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, that is top stitched all the way around. I went ahead and I pulled my strings through to the back and tied them off here. So now what we need to do is we need to add the other half of our zipper pocket. So I will move my zipper pull to the center just to keep it out of the way. And then you're going to line up your other half of the zipper pocket so they are right sides together. You're going to clip in place around the top and the two sides only. Do not clip along the bottom edge. That edge is going to be left unsewn for right now because that is going to be where we are going to turn this bag through. Okay, so once you get your bag clipped, or your pocket clipped, I should say, we're going to flip it over upside down, take it to the sewing machine. We're going to pull this panel out of the way. Start and stop a couple stitches here. We're going to stitch up to this corner, keep your needle down, lift your foot so you can turn the bag, and then we're going to stitch to this side. Same thing, keeping your needle down, and then flip the panel back, and then stitch down to this end. Starting and stopping, make sure you do a couple start and stop stitches at both ends, and that way that will keep this pocket strong so that when we're turning it through here, it's not too difficult. Okay? So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. The one thing I will say is that if you are making a bag that has a lot of foam or a lot of structure and you think you're not going to be able to turn the whole bag through this pocket, then there are instructions provided in the pattern on how you can do a drop-in lining. So that is one option that you could do. And then in which case, if you were doing a drop-in lining, then you just stitch all the way around this whole pocket, closing up this bottom edge as well. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stitch that, and then we'll be ready to add the final pieces onto this panel. Okay, so that is stitched around the top and the two sides. Again, this is left open so that we are able to turn it through. You can go ahead and open this all the way because we will need it open when we turn it through anyway, so feel free to do that now. Now, optionally, if you are going to be adding a D-ring tab or lobster clasp to your bag, this is where you can install it. You could install it on the other side as well. I just choose to install it on the side with the zipper. So what you're going to do now is you're going to take your other facing, and I will get back to this tab in just a second. You're going, or not your other facing, your other recessed zipper, and you're going to lay that down centered. It's definitely not centered. So here, let me show you. I'll just do it this way on this one. So this is what I was saying. If you wanted to make a little mark, you could make a tiny notch here, if you can see that, in the top of your facing. And then the same thing for your panel. If you folded that in half and then made a tiny notch there as well. So you can see that. And then you would take your two notches and line them up, and then that should make it exactly centered. So let's test out that theory. Yep. Okay, so go ahead. It's nice and centered. Go ahead and attach it. Okay, now the one thing that I will say before we move on, just like we did on the outer panels, I will just kind of lay my two panels down so that I can see that they do in fact line up here side to side. If for whatever reason one of my recessed zippers, if it was off in some way and it was like this, then that's how it would be when the bag was put together, and after all this work, that would just be tragic. So always a good double check just to do this first before you stitch it down. So all of that looks good for me. So I'm going to leave that just like that. Take my other facing. Again, you can go ahead and baste this on if you prefer, or just attach your top facing to this panel as well. And then we are going to, just like on the other side, we're going to stitch it down. Then you're going to press this top facing, so you're going to stitch along this edge, press this top facing up and away, and then top stitch along this edge. Now, if you are adding the D-ring tab. Before you stitch all that down, I recommend putting the D-ring tab on the side that has the zipper opening. So I would just slide that in there. And actually, there is a measurement provided in the pattern for how far in from the side you would put it. And so I will double check that measurement before I stitch it down, but you would just clip that in there and then you would have your D-ring. Now if you're adding a water bottle, I might move the D-ring to this side and put my water bottle sleeve here attached to this side. I would definitely recommend keeping your water bottle sleeve on the open side of your zipper, because that way you could still zip. If you have a tall bottle in your bag, you could still zip up to the water bottle and it would hold it. If you have a can, if it's like a 12-ounce soda can perfectly, then you could just zip it all the way closed and no big deal. But if you have a taller bottle, I would definitely recommend having it on this side. It just makes it a lot easier to get it in and out. I have made, I think I showed it earlier in this video, one that had the zipper or the water bottle sleeve here where the zipper closes and this tail kind of gets in the way. So just a couple things to keep in mind. Of course, you can keep this here and the water bottle sleeve here. You can keep it all on the same side if you want to. Totally up to you. Those are just my recommendations. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stitch that, press it back, and then top stitch. And then we, believe it or not, guys, we will be ready to put our lining together. And we are almost done with this bag. Okay, so that is all attached. We have our recessed zipper here. We have our key minder that is attached. We have our zipper pocket with the zipper pull open so that we are able to reach into our pocket. And now we are ready to put our lining together. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take our two lining panels, and then I recommend matching at this seam, at the top seam first, because you want that to match up nicely inside of your bag. That's the part that everybody's going to see. And then go ahead and just clip down the side of this panel. Okay, then on the other side, you want to tuck your tails in and out of the way, and then matching up this side as well. You want to make sure that that lines up as close as possible to that seam right there. And I'll clip one on either side, and then clipping down this panel as well. Okay, and then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to clip along this bottom edge. Okay, once all of that is clipped, just make sure everything looks good. You don't have any buckling or anything like that. Your tails are tucked in and out of the way, and everything is looking good. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to sew down these long sides and sew all the way across the bottom. So I'll just start at one end and then across here and then back up to the top. And then after that, we are going to box the corners just like we did on the outside, and we will do that. And then we'll be ready to put the outer panel and the lining panel together. Now, one side note, I will say the pattern instructions let you know the seam allowance for the lining. And what I would recommend is starting it at the same seam allowance that we did for the outer, just right here at the top, because that's where it's going to match up with the top of the bag. And then I will come in just slightly to the seam allowance that it says in the pattern instructions, just to help to keep this lining so it's not quite so baggy inside of your main bag. And then same here, keep that little bit larger seam allowance across the bottom. And then for the box corners as well. Okay, So I'm going to take that over to the machine, stitch up all these sides, stitch these box corners together, and then we'll be back to put it together. Okay, so that is all stitched together. Our lining is stitched together. Zipper pocket is open. Optionally, you can trim down. I might trim down these bottom seams just a little bit. Okay, now we are ready to put it together. So grabbing our outer bag. Now this is where, again, you got to think about which way you want it to go. Here, let me see if I can zoom out a little bit. Okay, so since I mentioned that I wanted this little bit firmer side on the front of my bag where I only have one layer here, I need to make sure that they're going to be on the same sides like that. So what we're going to be doing is taking our outer bag and putting it inside of our lining. So our lining is wrong side out, our outer is right side out, and we're just gonna stuff it in. And because our seam allowance was a little bigger, or I'm sorry, a little smaller on the lining, the bag is going to be really tight and it might not feel like it wants to go where you want it to go. So just go ahead and just push it around, give it a little, maneuver it, get it to where you want it to be. And then what I will do is I will nest my side seams. So with one seam allowance going that way, on this one the seam allowance is going that way, and I'm matching right up at that side. And then I'm going to add a clip there in the center, and then one on either side to hold that in place. And I'm going to turn the bag around and do the same thing on this side. So again, nesting these seams. One's going, the inside is going that way, the outer is going that way, and I'm matching it up right there at that seam. Clip in the middle, one clip on either side. Okay, now you just want to make sure that your strap handles are inside the bag, tucked out of the way. Nothing's going to get caught as you clip it around. And what I'll do is I'll just kind of pull my bag tight, and that will help me to get to that center there, just to make sure everything is, right where I want it to be. And then just clip, 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 clip around, all the way around, add as many clips as you like to help everything to stay right where you want it to stay. Okay, and then the same on this side. This side's going to be a little bit tougher, I can see. So I'm probably going to add a few extra clips on this side. Okay, so once you have everything clipped all the way around, you're going to take it to the sewing machine. You're going to stitch all the way around this top edge according to the seam allowance in the pattern instructions, and then that will connect our two bags together. And then, so I'll go ahead and do that, and then I'll be back for our daily workout where we try to turn the bag through the little zipper opening. Okay, all right guys, see you in a few. All right, stitched all the way around. Now we are ready to turn it through. So reaching into your zipper opening, just go ahead and reach in, grab your outer bag, and then just start working it through that hole. Okay, so you can tuck your pocket back inside. What you're going to do once we are all done and we like how our bag is lined up, we're going to flip this under for the seam allowance, and then we're going to clip it and sew it in place. But first, let's make sure that we like how our bag is sitting. So you're going to take your lining and push it to the inside. Okay, so what I will do is I will roll the seams at the top to make sure that they are where I want them to be. And then clipping it in place all the way around. This is also going to help me make sure that my lining is laying nicely on the inside, because you want to make sure that your seams are all the way to the top there. Okay, so once you have that, then you can go ahead again, like I said, press your lining into place, smooth everything out, make sure it looks good, make sure it's how you want it, and I think that will be just fine. I don't know if you can see that in there. I have this zipper pocket that's a little bulky right now, but I think once that's in and laying flat, everything will be just fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull the zipper out, the zipper pocket, and then I'm going to fold under those edges just to create that little bit of seam allowance. Let's see. This can be a little tricky, so oftentimes I'll just kind of work it and then I'll go back and adjust it and work it and adjust it and work it and adjust it just to get everything nice and straight. Okay, so that is nice and straight. So here is where I will go ahead and just stitch as close to the edge as I can on this zipper pocket to close that off, and then I'll stuff it, I'll stick it back inside of this zipper opening, and then that will finish off my zipper. If I didn't like how the bag was sitting, then before you close this, you could always turn it back through to the other side. You could stitch a little bit closer in on your seam allowance on the lining, and then that would help to make it fit a little bit more snug on the inside. So if you need to make any adjustments, just do that before you close this. But since I'm happy with how this one is sitting, I'm going to go ahead and close this, and then I'm going to top stitch all the way around the top of the bag. And then the last step that we'll need to do is I'm also going to add a couple rivets here, just like I added the rivet here. I'm going to add, just for a little design feature, I'm going to add a couple rivets at the strap ends there, and then at the strap ends here on the back. And then the last thing we have to do is we have to finish off our recessed zipper, and our bag will be done. Okay guys, so I'm super excited. I can't wait to see how it's going to look when it's all done. So let's go ahead and do those steps and then meet me back here for the recess zipper. Okay, now that that is top stitched all the way around, everything is looking really good. The last thing we have to do is to install our recessed zipper. So onto our zipper pull, I should say, onto our recessed zipper. So with the ends of your zipper, you're going to take the rounded end of your zipper pull, slide one side of the teeth onto each side of the zipper. Try to get it as even as possible. And sometimes it takes a couple tries. Yep. My left side needs to go in first. So you just want to try and get it as even as lined up as, like I said, as possible, so that obviously you can see this is not lined up. Not lined up. My left side wants to go in before, or I should say my right side wants to go in before the left. So let me push the left in a little bit more and then try it. There we go. All right, so the end is straight. You can zip your zipper all the way across, see how it's going to look. I think it looks amazing. Now what we need to do is put the end on your zipper so that when you unzip it, you won't zip it all the way off. In the pattern, I have provided zipper tab end piece P, and that there are instructions on how you fold this. You will fold the ends in, and then you will, and the sides will be in as well, and then you can sew it over the end of your tab here. So you could do that. You also, there is zipper end hardware that you could use. You could install that at the end, and that's a lot of times that's where you just kind of fold in the ends here, and then it's a metal zipper tab end, and so you could attach that, seal it off that way. I think what I'm going to do is I just cut a little piece of cork, and it is a tiny bit wider than my zipper teeth, than my zipper tape, I should say. I'm just going to fold it over in half like this, and because it's raw edge, I don't need to finish it with anything. I don't need to, have any ends turned under or anything like that. So I think one thing that'll help me is just adding a strip of double-sided tape down each edge, and then removing that paper backing. I'm just going to lay it in the center and then fold it over. So you want to make sure everything matches up nice and neat. As you can see, that's how that's going to look. I'm just going to take it and I'm going to stitch a line straight across here. You could stitch a box, but because this is such a small tab, I'm just going to stitch one straight line across here and call that good. Okay, so then optionally, once you get that done, here I'm going to add a couple clips while I'm talking just to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. Okay, so once you get that stitched, the last thing, if you want to do, and it's totally optional, is you could add 1 or 2 rivets here. Like I said, it would just help to give a little extra strength to the straps. So I'm going to do that on the front and on the back. And then that is it, guys. We are basically done with our bag. So I'm going to do those features, and then I'll come back at the end and show you my finished bag. All right, guys. So I stitched the end tab just in cork, just to match. I just used the same cork as I did down here at the bottom. So just to match that, you can tuck that inside if you want, so it's not sticking out. And then I added 2 rivets to the strap handle area on both the front and the back. And then I think also that just kind of helps that facing to stay where it's supposed to, so that your recessed zipper looks really nice. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial. This is probably the cutest little thing I've ever designed. I mean, I love the Road Tripster tote, but then when I made the mini version, it was like, oh my gosh, this is probably my favorite thing ever. So I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial. Thank you so, so, so much for joining me. Please, if you haven't already, give my video a like, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you're not already. That really helps to get with the algorithms and all that, to get out in front of more people. And yeah, if you make the roadie, please post pictures, tag me on social media, use the hashtag K.dill Handmade, and also Roadie Bag. It's ROADIEBAG. And I also have a Facebook makers group. You can tag, post in there. I will link to all of these social media accounts and ways to contact me and links to the pattern and all that stuff will be linked into the description of this video. And yeah, guys, I just hope you, like I said, I hope you really enjoyed it. I hope you have fun. I hope you make amazing roadies. And please, please, please share photos and tag me so that I can see all of the incredible things that you're going to make with it. All right, happy sewing. I'll see you later.